When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
And we are live with Rewind to Raw. I am John Pollock along with One Take Ting. Hello, Wai.
What's going on, John? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing solid.
Solid. Okay, that's a new one.
Did you get up to anything this Monday? It was very nice out today.
No. Well, yeah, actually, I went ring shopping with my fiance, like engagement ring shopping.
We all probably put that together. I imagine you were not getting like a 18 by 18 structure for your backyard.
I did. Yeah. Well, you know, rings. Some people show love in various ways. Yeah. Possible.
Well, did you get a ring, or were you just observing and looking?
I got a ring because, like, I mean, I already got her engagement ring actually when I got her wedding band when I got the engagement ring. So
right.
I didn't have to pick for her. But for me, like, I'm like, I don't have a preference for this shit. Like, I just want a piece of metal. Like, it doesn't even have to be, you know, like gold or like they're telling me about like carats, and I'm like, I don't care. Even like the 1 carat thing. Like I've had no, like, I don't, like, it could just be like, it means nothing. Well, it means a lot to me, but like the carat and all that stuff, like, that's pretty meaningless to me. So anyway, but we did eventually choose a ring. But it took like 15 minutes. Like, took no time.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I got one. I was not a ring wearer. So my wife said, wear it for 3 months. If you hate it, you don't have to wear it. And I enjoyed it. I like, it wasn't really, I thought it was going to be very intrusive having this thing. Like, I don't wear a watch. I don't wear rings. I don't wear anything. So I thought it was just going to be this clumsy thing that I've got.
Clip out, Brandon.
Well, he's retired, remember? He's moved on.
So what? It doesn't get in, like, when you wash your hands, like all that stuff, do you take it off?
It's really not any kind of, it's not noticeable at all. In fact, I kind of like that, you know, it's something that you can just, you know, you're bored, you can twist something. I don't know. It's like, it's there. It's really, I thought it would be more of a hang up to be wearing it. So we made the deal that I'll wear it for 3 months, and it was fine. So give it a try.
So what occasion would you actually take it off?
I only took it off when I would do jiu-jitsu.
Wow. Interesting. Cool.
That was it. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I remember hearing stories that I would roll with it. And they told me, like, there have been stories of like bad injuries of people wearing rings while they're rolling. And I did not want to have that in the back of my mind as I was rolling with people. So I would just leave my ring and take it off for jiu-jitsu.
Right. Okay.
But other than that, I just wear it.
It's a good tip. All right. Well, I'll let you know how it is at some point.
I went running today.
Did you really? Wow. Are you a runner?
I'm going to try to be.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, first of all, like, what made you decide, and how did you enjoy it?
The weather. It's been cold as hell, and I've been stuck in this basement for the entire winter, and it was so nice out. I was like, okay, I want to go running, so I'm going to do it. So I finished my update, and then I went and I ran for like half an hour. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Felt very refreshed afterwards.
Very nice.
It gave me a lot of energy, to be honest, like, no kidding. I had so much more energy tonight during Raw because I had gotten out and at least ran for a bit.
Some endorphins.
This might be my new Monday ritual to prepare for Raw.
That's fantastic. Awesome.
I'm starting to I got to get in WrestleMania shape. So that weekend, I'm going to need something.
Yeah, well, keep us updated.
I will, minute by minute. Okay, we've got a few things to go over. I want to talk a bit about the schedule first. Off the top, I want to start with post-podcast day because we're counting down. The real highlight of the wrestling fans' calendar in April is post-podcast day on Sunday, April the 3rd. If you have not been aware, we are going live at noon Eastern that day. This will be open to all members at all levels of the Post Wrestling Cafe. So if you're thinking of joining the cafe for all of our WrestleMania coverage and other events that we will be doing that week, sign up at the beginning of the month. You will get access to Post Podcast Day. 6 live shows, including a live Ask Away with myself and, you won't guess it, Way, who will be with me for the hour taking your questions. We are also going to have the British Wrestling Experience, Martin Bushby and Benno, with a history of WCW in Europe. Up next, Braden and Davey going through the worst WrestleMania matches ever of all time. And the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, Nate Milton, Andrew Thompson, Chris from LA. They're hinting that we might get some surprise guests on the show. They will be live with a show. And joining the fray, we have 2 more announcements coming this week. The first being a live edition of Turned Out a Punk with Damian Abraham, guest to be announced. Damian will be live for an hour. A live edition of Turned Out a Punk.
This is very exciting. This is somebody, I mean, you know, typically I guess we were intending on having everybody who is part of the Post Wrestling Network. And obviously Damian Abraham is, but I don't know how much of our audience is necessarily familiar with his own podcast, Turned Out a Punk. This is almost like a multiverse type of situation here where we have a sampling of Damian's show where he talks to various people about their histories with punk music, or just like, you know, I guess music sometimes in general. But what people may not be aware is that he's had several wrestlers on his podcast talking about their history with punk music. So I'm very excited to find out who this might be. It probably won't be Robbie Brookside. Can we rule him out?
I don't think it'll be Robbie Brookside. Maybe he'll bring back Bill Hader, who he just had on his show. We will see. Wow. I mean, the guy is getting into A-list territory on Turned Out a Punk, but he will be with us live for Post Podcast Day. And Wednesday on Rewind to Dynamite, we will announce the Post Podcast Day headliner. Who's going to be main eventing Post Podcast Day? We will reveal that on Wednesday. So look out for that Saturday, April the 3rd. But that is weeks away. Coming up this week, another monster schedule. We have a lot coming up. We've got our big review of Creed coming out on Tuesday. Way and I are now moving into 2015. We're down to the final rounds of the Rocky series. We're now into the spin-off territory with a spin-off that was very well received 6 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. You know, for those disappointed, don't worry. After this movie, we will talk about every Creed album, starting with what's the name of the first one?
Human Clay.
Human Clay. Very good. Excellent. I was going to say In My Arms or something like that.
I don't know if Human Clay is their first one.
You know, I think we should get Davian to host a Turn Out a Creed fan edition for Post Podcast Day.
It's not too many bands that can say our performance was so poor that there was a class action lawsuit against us for the performance that we put forward.
Okay, well, anyway, maybe we will have some Creed talk in there, but we were talking about, of course, as John mentioned, the 2015 movie starring Michael B. Jordan, directed by Ryan Coogler, Creed. I just watched it this afternoon. I forgot how good this thing was. I'd love to know where you rank it amongst the Rocky movies, so can't wait to dive into this one.
I'm not telling you now. I'll tell you on Tuesday. So look out for that, the Creed review. We've got our regular slate of shows Wednesday night with Up Next and Rewind to Dynamite, along with John Cena on the Up Next feed with Shot in the Dark. Thursday, a fun day at Post Wrestling. We will have Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure as they are going back to the Classic Takeover Dallas event from April of 2016. Maybe one of the greatest entrances in WWE history as Shinsuke Nakamura debuted against Sami Zayn in Dallas.
Well, that's very exciting. And you know what? Just as exciting, March rolling deals continue at store.postwrestling.com. And this week, we are going to profile Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure with 25% off of the British Bushby and Thompson Wrestling Adventure t-shirt. Not just for patrons, but for everybody.
Everyone.
Well, right now, everybody. Store.postwrestling.com this week only 25% off of that shirt. Support our friends at Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure. Damn, but there's a lot of shows.
Also on Thursday, I'm going to do a preview of UFC 260 and go over all the latest MMA news with not one, but two former colleagues, James Lynch and Cody Saftik, who will be with me. And then we go into the weekend, which will include a UFC 260 post show, the latest MCU Later with Wai Ting and WH Park for patrons. And we'll also have a bonus post Pro Res show this weekend with WH Park and Joey Bay, who will be with him. So lots of great stuff up at the post office this week for cafe and non-cafe members alike.
Very exciting.
Go check all of that out at postwrestling.com. We'll now move into the news. And first of all, so earlier tonight, it had been reported by John Alba at Spectrum Sports 360 that the WWE, their final day at Tropicana Field will be Friday, April the 2nd, which is a week from Friday. And I was able to confirm this on my own, and it sounds like they are going to be taping a ton of stuff next week before they get out of Tropicana Field. This will include the go-home episodes of Raw and SmackDown going into WrestleMania. So this will include, as well, this had previously been reported by Fightful that the Hall of Fame would be taped next week as well. So next week's schedule, on Monday, they will do Raw like usual. On Tuesday, March 30th, they're going to tape the following week's Raw going into Mania, as well as the first Hall of Fame taping. Then on Thursday, April 1st, they're taping an episode of SmackDown and the second night of the Hall of Fame. And then Friday, April 2nd, they are doing SmackDown. So it sounds like Friday, April 2nd, will be a live SmackDown, meaning they're going to be taping out of order, and the go-home SmackDown will actually be done the day prior. So that's a little confusing to pull off. But nonetheless, it's a massive taping schedule that they have next week. But I guess the positive is that WrestleMania week, like, it's busy enough, and you're eliminating the need to have to do Raw and SmackDown on the Monday and Tuesday, and you can focus on, your NXTs both nights and whatever else is going on WrestleMania week. But that will wrap up WWE's residency at Tropicana Field on April 2nd.
So that means the Raw after WrestleMania and really right into the next week, they'll be at a completely different venue?
Yeah, and I don't know where that's going to be. I know that John Alba and Dave Meltzer have talked about the fact that what's the name of the place in the Tampa area that is the front runner for all of this. But that's not confirmed that is the place yet, that it is at least rumored to be where they could end up. But we will see. But they're going to have a plan for the night after WrestleMania, which I'm sure they are finalizing, if not already have lined up.
Yeah, that turnaround's got to be crazy. I mean, for the next couple weeks for this crew. Yeah,
the Yuengling Center, that's the place that is believed to be who they've been engaging in talks with.
Yuengling.
So it's formerly the Sun Dome at the University of South Florida. So that is where they could end up. Moving on, Charlotte Flair tonight announced why she has been off TV, and that is because she is at home with COVID. And I think that this, shedding some light into where she had been, this had kind of ramped up over the weekend because the new promotional material that she had originally been on for WrestleMania, her image had been taken off. And what was interesting is that you hear this news and you're wondering, well, if they're taping Raw next Monday and Tuesday, could she be back in time? And then Andrade tonight said that she will be clear in 4 days. So kind of like piecing all this together, but I mean, based on tonight, it would seem, I mean, if she's going to be clear within 4 days, certainly she could be woven back into the WrestleMania plans. But, I mean, no, they did bring her name up tonight on Raw. So I guess we will see based on next week. It would seem very strange not to have Charlotte part of WrestleMania if she's, in fact, cleared by then.
Well, first, thank you, Andrade, for providing that bit of news for everybody.
But listen, maybe that's going to be Andrade's landing spot. Is going to be maybe he wants to be a reporter here with us.
Why not? The door's open, definitely. 4 days, yeah. Do you think she will figure into anything at WrestleMania? I mean, obviously, if she's available, you would think so. But
I think it's very
match.
I think it's a very easy insert that, I mean, tonight's setup was Rhea Ripley showing up and pointing to a sign. So I don't think they have to do cartwheels to figure out a way to insert her into that match. If she's available, which if she is next week, you would have to shoot the angle because they've got to shoot all their TV next week, unless you wanted to get creative and do something on SmackDown, which would be done later in the week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on with Charlotte, but I guess just giving an update on where she has been. Anything we kind of touched upon this on Sunday, but I mean, Andrade did officially get his release from WWE and did issue a statement today thanking Triple H, William Regal, and Paul Heyman for their help over the years, and now becomes the interesting game of where he ends up. And the fact that Thea Trinidad is also available makes that, to me, a really attractive group to put back together, whoever is seeking these talents.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think she was already a hot commodity, but has become obviously even more so with his release. And the two of them, I hope, enter a promotion as a package. Not too many other thoughts other than the fact that it was kind of strange, the order of events, that took place for this to happen, with them not releasing him and then a few days later deciding to release him. Definitely kind of makes you wonder what sort of negotiation took place in between that time, and whether or not this sort of, these sort of demands will be listened to if other talents were to, ask.
Yeah, I think that, you look at some talent that are not being utilized. Sorry?
No non-compete, correct?
Yeah, that is what the Wrestling Observer reported today. The fact that he has no non-compete, which is really interesting that they would waive that for him, because WWE, definitely. By the standard WWE contract, would have that ability to have a 90-day no compete, and without one, literally, the guy could show up on Dynamite on Wednesday night.
So he probably has a great agent.
Well, anyway, he got what he was wanted. By the way, for Dynamite this week, Tony Khan announced right at the end of Raw, not that he was on Raw, but on Twitter after Raw, that Wednesday they've added Young Bucks and Brandon Cutler against Phoenix, Pentagon, and Laredo Kid returning.
Very exciting.
So that's a pretty hot match for Wednesday that they have for the live Dynamite. SmackDown ended up doing a bit of a disappointing number given how they had built up Edge's first match in 10 years. They were going against the NCAA basketball tournament. They did 2,093,000 viewers, second lowest of the year, and a 0.57 in the 18 to 49 demographic. So tied for their fourth lowest demo of the year. In Canada, they did just over 181,000 viewers. But the fact that, yes, basketball was going on, that's a key, sports competition that they're dealing with. But I would say that was a disappointing number for a big match you had a week to promote with Edge.
Yeah. What do you pin that on? Is it just the game, or do you put it on Edge?
I mean, we go back and I think that it's one where I wouldn't have expected it to be that low. I thought that number would have somewhat. I thought Edge Wrestling would have somewhat offset what they had that night to deal with. And the fact that, well, we'll also see this week because basketball is continuing. And if they do a better number this week coming off the pay-per-view, I think that shows you that it was more so a lack of interest in what they had to provide rather than basketball being an excuse. And if SmackDown is hurt further this week, I guess you can put a little more on basketball. But I still look at it like if you have a big match people want to see, it should, at least for that quarter, be interesting to see how the match actually performed, and advertising all week that he was going to be wrestling, unlike the Orton match back the night after the Rumble, where they just announced it at the beginning of the show and didn't have that lead time to advertise in advance. And then the last thing, we have the Sakura Genesis lineup, and we have the usual fare on the undercard. I guess notable that the Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb will have X, so it looks like a new member of the United Empire, against Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, and Sonata. And then the top matches will feature Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay, El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru defending the junior heavyweight tag titles against the reformed Roppongi 3K with Yo returning. And then we got Tanahashi and Satoshi Kojima against Jay White and Bad Luck Fale, and the rest, some multi-person tags underneath. I wouldn't say an overwhelming card that they have booked for Sumo Hall. It's really built around the main event, a bit of a mystery as to who joins the United Empire, and maybe shooting some angles for May, because they have some big buildings that they are running in May.
Yeah, certainly. Outside of the main event and really finding out who this new member of the United Empire is, I don't really, my interest level in some of these cards isn't really so huge. And I really wonder if it's just like a lack of maybe fresh faces lately within the roster that's contributing to that. But who do you think it is that's joining the group?
I mean, it's been thrown out there about, like, Toa Hanare is teasing that he is leaving Japan. I think a lot of people are looking at that he is geared for that push, and joining a faction would seem like the natural evolution for that character. Like, I can't think of anyone else that would make sense to join the group.
Mm-hmm. I certainly, I've been looking forward to him turning heel for a long, long time. And, being one of 4 people within this brand new stable, I think would just be fantastic for him. So I hope it is him.
And the final thing is Genichiro Tenryu. We want to mention this. Was hospitalized on Friday. He's dealing with congestive heart failure. And it was noted in his website put out a statement and indicated it is not life-threatening. But certainly when you hear something like that, and given his age, it's going to be concerning, especially when it's dealing with the heart. But certainly Tenryu, a enormous legend in Japanese wrestling history, and wrestled up until just over 5 years ago with that farewell match with Kazuchika Okada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, obviously we wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it's a full recovery for Genichiro Tenryu. All right, let us go to Raw, a pretty busy edition of the show, as they are rapidly getting the WrestleMania card into gear now that Fastlane is officially over. Mm-hmm. Bobby Lashley and Sheamus started off the show with a non-title match, and Sheamus was selling all the effects of the no-holds-barred match and was suddenly thrust into this babyface position against Bobby Lashley. And Benjamin and Alexander would appear ringside, and Benjamin clotheslines Sheamus behind the referee's back. Sheamus then fires away in his big comeback, hits a flying clothesline to the floor on Lashley, another inside. Brogue kick misses when Alexander slides in, leading to Lashley hitting a spinebuster and applying the Hurt Lock, submitting Sheamus in 11 minutes and 37 seconds.
Thought it was a good heavyweight TV match, as these two have been providing recently on Raw. I think Lashley continues to look really good, really dominant, very beast-like. So that was all positive. What I found interesting was just everything they were doing, continuing, really developing a rift, I would say, at this point between Shelton and Cedric with the rest of the Hurt Business. In the past, it's been they've been really hot and cold with Cedric and, whether or not he's sort of like a rebellious renegade member of the Hurt Business. They were really for a long time teasing that he would be the one to get kicked out. And now it looks like they are including Shelton into that as well. So I definitely found that part of the storytelling somewhat interesting, because the story here is that Lashley doesn't want cheating. And what do you make of that? Do you think that it is any indicator of whether or not they have plans for him to turn babyface after perhaps, this Drew match? Or was it simply, them his ego not wanting people to think that he needed help?
Well, all of that makes sense if you believe he's turning babyface, that he wants to win on his own. But then the guy puts up a bounty for the locker room to take out Drew McIntyre. So that kind of negated any moral compass that Bobby Lashley was displaying early on here. So, yeah, Alexander and Benjamin are continuing to attack when Drew runs out to save Sheamus and ends up having the face-off with Lashley, and McIntyre's trying to goad him into fighting, and MVP gets in the way, telling Lashley to think about business, and backs off. And then backstage, this is when Lashley blows up on Alexander and Benjamin, And MVP says that you tarnished the image of Lashley. It was an embarrassment when you lost the tag titles and therefore an embarrassment to Lashley, and asks, what are you two going to do about it? And throughout the show, they were definitely emphasizing like the cracks in the Hurt Business, which, man, this is not a group I think has had their run that you would want to end things unless you're looking post-Mania, which is 3 weeks away, and Bobby Lashley potentially coming out of that show at least teasing more of a babyface role, and this is beginning to break him away from the Hurt Business.
I definitely think there was something to be accomplished with all three of the members having belts. The moment Lashley won, and you had the tag belts on Shelton and Cedric, I think like really amplifying like the fact that this was a stable that was taking over the WWE, or at least on the Raw side, that I think was a missed opportunity that they didn't capitalize on. Like it felt like, really like a week later or 2 weeks later, they just took the belts right off of the Cedric and Shelton. And now it looks like they might even be soon to break up, which would be somewhat unfortunate. But I do wonder.
It would not be good for Alexander and Benjamin. If this group breaks up, like they would be in that locker room with that crew.
And yeah, I just kind of found very peculiar, like throughout this entire show, it felt like they were very much teasing Lashley going babyface. He doesn't want cheating. He's a fair champion, and he exercised, I thought, incredible willpower in the end here, not, attacking Drew McIntyre. But that, of course, would be inconsistent with later on.
Asuka versus Peyton Royce, another non-title match. They aired Royce's promo from 2 weeks ago on Raw Talk, challenging Asuka. And I thought Peyton Royce had a very good performance in this match. This was a big opportunity for her to go 11 minutes with Asuka. She did this, she applied this ankle lock and then did a bridge that Asuka kicked free from. Asuka hit her with a spinning back fist and then missed with the hip attack and gets her neck snapped as they go through the break. Asuka hits a German Shining Wizard, only gets a 2 count, and Royce then catches Asuka, lifts her up in like a gory special, and then drops her. And Royce can only get a 2 count. She lifts up Asuka. The Asuka lock gets countered. Spin kick misses, and Asuka hits the code breaker. Royce comes back with a double foot stomp, and she continues to only get 2 counts. She's getting frustrated, and she tries to do the roll through into the half crab, but that's countered to an armbar. Asuka moves to the Asuka lock and submits Peyton in 11 minutes and 11 seconds. But I thought that Peyton Royce used her opportunity very well here, and to go out and do an 11-minute match with Asuka, and I thought that they did a fine job here, the two of them.
Might have been the best I've seen Peyton Royce. You can clearly tell she's been working on a lot of these technical sequences in her spare time, and had a chance to display him here against probably the best technical wrestler within the division. So I have no idea like why she's been used the way she's been used over the past year. You figure they broke up that team for a reason, and there appeared to be absolutely none. She went from being pretty popular tag team to not really having much of a singles run to not being utilized on Raw at all. So I wish I could say like I felt I would feel differently for her future after this, but like something tells me Vince doesn't care that much whether or not somebody is like gotten better technically in the ring. I don't know what he looks for. It's like that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Good job, Peyton. That was 3 1/4.
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, with that, Peyton moved on, and Rhea Ripley appeared on Raw. She has finally found the Thunderdome after 2 months, and she confronts Asuka. Says that Charlotte Flair isn't here because she's recovering from COVID, and therefore she is challenging Asuka to a match at WrestleMania.
I was a little surprised at how like casually it was mentioned. I mean, of course, it's not the first time they've announced that a talent had COVID on air. Drew, I believe, being the first. But
I think it was pretty clear that they were certainly not blindsided by Charlotte announcing that this was a coordinated announcement that Rhea was reacting. Like, Charlotte announced this at the beginning of the show. It was, we're like a half hour or so into Raw.
But I liked how casual it was. To me, it's not a topic that needs to be hidden or danced around. At this point, it's like an injury report.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone realized that from the get-go, that there was not this negative connotation with COVID. A lot of people have had it, but I mean, we know that it was not well received when Renee decided to announce this.
Yeah, they at least seem to have changed, maybe.
So, just like that, I guess Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, they're still off proving Charlotte that they deserve this title match.
Well, who knows what all that was all about?
I mean, I'm sure whatever they had planned with Charlotte, all those plans fell apart.
Yeah.
So with Charlotte not available.
And, I'm not really upset about it. I think, this Rhea Ripley Asuka match is the best match they could have possibly made anyway. And, at this point, why 3 weeks out, why kind of dance around the issue? Just tell us what match we're going to get, especially if you're trying to sell tickets for it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the blueprint for future call-ups. Like, don't worry about winning the Rumble. That's a lot of work. Just, get a surprise appearance and then just wait until the last minute when the champion needs an opponent and just be the one there to make that challenge. So there you go. Rhea Ripley gets the title match just because she asked for it. Bet you all the other women in the back are kicking themselves to know that that's all it required.
It is true. Like, I mean, they could have easily done some sort of gauntlet match and had a surprise appearance from Rhea winning at the end or something like that. Battle Royal, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, maybe some reason why she's getting the match would have been nice. But I guess I'm at the point now where I don't even ask those questions because I just don't expect it.
Here's the other question. With Charlotte out, who's even been built up that you would put against Rhea just to beat tonight that would be someone just at that stature to be a believable opponent for Asuka? I like Shane and Nia. That's about it.
Sorry, you mean who would Rhea beat?
Like, if tonight you were going to make a match for Rhea Ripley to beat someone, who would that opponent be that you would take as, like, has been built up to any degree to be a championship contender?
There's no singular person. I mean, besides Nia, but Shayna and Nia don't seem to be, in that division right now. So I think it would have to be some sort of, like, gauntlet match or battle royal, something, encompassing the entire division.
Adam Pearce was backstage with Drew and said that Benjamin and Alexander want a handicap match, and Pearce does not want to sanction this, but Drew notes it probably wouldn't be sensible to do this so close to Mania, but how about this? If I beat them, they are banned from ringside at WrestleMania. And Pearce loves this idea.
Yeah.
That's great. Guys won't get a Mania payoff then. Be less to pay out that night. The WrestleMania edition of Miz TV followed, and The Miz and Morrison were out. They ran down Bad Bunny, having zero respect for The Miz, who listed off all of his accolades. And he shows the source of controversy, the WrestleMania poster. And not only was Charlotte Flair not on this poster, neither were The Miz or John Morrison. But who was on the poster? Bad Bunny. As Miz called this, the most significant poster of the year.
Well, what
the
else?
Most significant poster of the year.
Is there a more significant poster?
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean, he didn't say wrestling poster. He said any poster.
Oh,
I mean, this is announcing any news this year that you would do so in poster form. So this is the most important one. And they recapped the guitar attack last week, and Miz sends out a warning to all musicians, actors, and sports stars that think they can do what they do and try to walk all over them. So next week, Morrison and Miz are going to premiere their new diss track, Hey Hey, Hop Hop. And before they play the clip, Morrison says, do you know what the opposite of a Bad Bunny is? A good rapper.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Well, then they played this preview. I think this thing looks great. I think this is going to be really awesome. Funny next week.
It's got a ton of John Morrison rapping in Spanish, and that alone, I think...
This was like a really... Like, it was obvious, like, these two put a lot of thought into this, and it was like, dude, it was like a catchy, corny beat. I thought it was like, this will be very funny next week.
This would be another case where, like, if there were live audiences, full live audiences for every single show, like I wonder if the audiences, how they would react to Bad Bunny and the Miz.
Well, how about this? Will the audience be singing this song at WrestleMania when they have the match? Like, if this is a catchy tune, like "Hey Hey Hop Hop," I could see the crowd getting into that.
Possibly, but I also don't know how like a dispersed, even though it's 25,000, I don't know how a dispersed 25,000 would sound at a stadium.
Yeah, it's a good question how that sound will travel in a open air stadium. Miz says next time, that next week will be the last time you hear of Bad Bunny. He says this diss track is going to put his career away, like he's Vanilla Ice, and then he challenges Bad Bunny to a match at WrestleMania, promising to end Bad Bunny's career.
Were you surprised that this was singles and not a tag?
I was, because I think everyone was expecting the tag match, and I mean, it doesn't mean they can't change it to a tag match, but the graphic that they put out later was very clear with Damian Priest in one corner, John Morrison in the other, and I just thought from the get-go, the whole point of this is, okay, Bad Bunny is your celebrity, but Damian Priest needs to reap the benefits of that connection. And frankly, I think you would want him and Morrison to be in this match for just quality purposes.
I mean, I think they really will. Like, they'll have plenty of presence in the match. They'll probably get involved a whole lot. And so...
There was no Damian Priest on the show tonight, so it could have just been something where he wasn't available tonight, and they can't shoot the angle till he's there. And then you insert him.
But I can also see them thinking that, a singles match with Bad Bunny versus the guy on the reality show who used to be on MTV, that might garner maybe more headlines than just kind of like, I don't know, adding more names to it. Maybe it's more attractive than just a tag team match, perhaps.
I'd say anyone covering this, it's like Bad Bunny's wrestling. I think that's the novelty. I mean, you can go either way. I mean, certainly you would expect Priest and Morrison will be involved. So, I mean,
it tells me they have a lot of confidence in Bad Bunny and his wrestling.
Well, maybe they have high hopes for him. I just think like you want that visual of Priest next to Bad Bunny, like that shot at the end of it, and he'll be there. So you can get to it many ways. It doesn't have to be a tag match. But before we get to that, it's The Miz and Jeff Hardy. And Hardy challenges The Miz to be a real man by sending John Morrison to the back. And Miz agreed. So Miz had no numbers advantage and proceeded to make rather quick work of Jeff here. Jeff hit a splash off the turnbuckle and then went for the twist of fate. It was blocked. Hardy's shoulder was sent into the post, and Miz hit the skull-crushing finale and pinned him in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This was like Marine Miz.
Yeah, it made Miz look really good. And obviously, like it's effective booking for the guy who is supposed to be a featured player, and Jeff Hardy isn't. But man, Jeff really made himself look bad. Like
it was like you didn't even have like. Again, you are selling the fact that Morrison will be in Miz's corner, and you should be having Morrison like be the assist for Miz to lead to this tag match or singles match, whatever you're going to do. But instead, it was like, man, you made this one-on-one for no reason, and then you lost on top of it.
I do think they do want to make Miz look somewhat competent heading into this. They do want to give him something. But isn't it funny how like for months this dude had the Money in the Bank. He was about to win the world championship, and they booked him like shit. But now he's about to have a match with Bad Bunny, and
we got to get him all serious. Yeah. And I mean, you're not wrong. Like at this point, this close to Mania, this should be the outcome, like given Miz's priority. But yes, you go to every bit of lead up. This could have better served Miz, I think, on a more consistent basis. And then Bad Bunny is back, and he smashes a guitar over the back of the Miz, a much better job than Miz did last week. And then he has fully acclimated himself to WWE verbiage by announcing, "I accept your challenge, bitch."
They gave him one of the bitches on this show.
That means they're serious about him.
Yeah. They say they did bitch. Orton said bullshit at the end, so that's how you know those are the
WrestleMania
top
time
programs.
way. Yep. And then we got the graphic. The graphics department was on top of things. Like someone pointed, boom, we got a graphic ready for WrestleMania. They were all set in the WWE Photoshop lab. Riddle wheels past AJ on his scooter, calling him Skipper. This scooter was going to meet its demise tonight, and I was so excited. AJ and Omos come out, and they do this promo about Omos making his debut at WrestleMania, what he's going to do the New Day, and combining their attributes together. So New Day comes out. Kofi does this British accent. They make a small dick joke. And then they try to push that AJ and Omos don't have any tag team chemistry because they don't even know one another. They ask AJ, do you even know what Omos's favorite color is? And he says, red. And Omos replies, it's mauve. I will say this. I don't know if I would be doing this kind of segment with Omos, but the man does have good comedic timing with his delivery. I will say that.
It definitely worked here. Mauve is a great choice of color. That's a color I didn't even really understand until I had to Google it. But man, I think you could buy somebody like Omos to have that level of taste.
Well, speaking of taste, his favorite ice cream was not vanilla bean, as AJ guessed. It's peanut butter caramel. And favorite WWE superstar, AJ thinks it's himself. No, Omos is an Andre the Giant fan.
Yeah.
And it ended with AJ proclaiming that AJ rocks as he rotated his hips, as he never felt more than a 40-plus-year-old father than in this moment.
Wasn't he doing this in the Bullet Club?
I remember him doing this with Mark Henry and Chris Jericho.
What? Really?
Oh, yeah.
No.
You can find that image somewhere, that video. So there you go. This was a New Day segment.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I mean, I thought it added at least some interesting story to the match. You know, they're asking, really highlighting AJ and almost his lack of experience compared to the New Day, who have years worth of it at this point.
So they did not announce what night this one would take place on, correct?
No, not yet.
So I wonder, you could do something where, based on how they scripted this segment, that AJ and Omos win the tag titles. The next night, Omos wins the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
I mean, they could, yeah, they could. I wrestler, like, but I almost think Omos is beyond that at this point. Like, honestly, winning the Andre just kind of paintbrushes somebody as being an undercard guy, and I think Omos is above that.
Then we had this was interesting. They had a CarMax ad with NWO footage from the 90s, and that segued into a plug for the Hall of Fame on April 6th, specifically mentioning Eric Bischoff, but nothing mentioned about the NWO, if in fact they are going in. They've been very quiet about last year's class. They're really only promoting this year's class.
Yeah, and if there's no mention of Batista not being on this one.
Well, yeah, I don't think they're going to make a note of the fact, hey, by the way, Batista's not going to be going in this year. But I'm curious. That would be
the natural kind of question for people, right? Like if they announce all the previous members from the last year were going to be there with like the glaring omission of the headliner. I wonder if they reconsidered the entire thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still more names to come for this year's class, and maybe they have. I mean, again, they're taping this in advance in the Thunderdome. You're selling no tickets for it. Why use a big name for this year's Hall of Fame that it's content on the network, and that is it? Mm-hmm. So I don't even think like if this was a year where this would not be the year to put the Undertaker in or anyone of significance to me. Save that for a year where you can actually sell tickets and do, sell out an arena. Yeah. So we got Kofi Kingston and AJ Styles, a lengthy match here. They went almost 14 minutes. Some highlights included a Trouble in Paradise that got stopped with an enziguri by AJ. Omos was blocking Xavier Woods and just kind of showcasing the size discrepancy. AJ rolled to the calf crusher. Kofi got to the rope. And then AJ drop kicked the knee of Kingston. He sets up for the phenomenal forearm, but gets rattled and trips as Woods plays the trombone.
Yes, of course.
So Omos goes after Woods, and then AJ readjusts, goes for the phenomenal forearm, but Kingston catches him in midair and hits the SOS and wins the match in 13:55.
So the story being that Omos wasn't there to help him, and therefore his chemistry with AJ is in question.
Yes. Omos won, and then AJ blew it. So
can they get along?
Yeah, I guess we're kind of just going for like a comedy match where, the story is, can AJ and Omos get along?
I think there's some interest in seeing how Omos, they've kept him out of the ring long enough that I think there is some interest in seeing him actually wrestle, and how he's booked is, more.
I mean, and they're putting him in there in a very safe environment with these three.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a smart way to do it where Omos only has to come in and do some big man spots that Kofi and Xavier can bump all over for, and just really showcase this man's power and size in a limited way. Like, they're going about it the safest way possible for a live match with this guy.
It is a really interesting challenge to see how three very talented wrestlers in Xavier, Kofi, and AJ can create a great match around this giant, inexperienced man.
Sheamus was backstage, and he is asked why he chose to face Lashley tonight, one night after your no-holds-barred match. And Sheamus is shocked. He says, I don't back down from any challenge or any fight. I live for the fight. And when asked about Drew coming down, he said, Drew showed respect. There isn't enough of that in this world. And he says, I can't stand Drew. But then all of a sudden comes the obnoxious Riddle with his scooter, and he's just asking this guy all these stupid questions, including if leprechauns are real. Sheamus takes this scooter, and I swear, I know this is not how it was intended, but this was the goddamn babyface turn for John Pollock.
I think it was how it was intended, personally.
That's how I would have taken this, and what I loved about it was Sheamus took his time with this scooter, so you could just wait for it and wait for this scooter to be destroyed. And the cherry on top was that before he broke it, he nailed Riddle with the scooter and sent him down. And then he just threw it down on the ground, breaking the scooter. I was so happy.
If there was any doubt that he was now a babyface, I mean, well, first look at the continued reaffirmation of his fighting spirit, taking Lashley's challenge despite, being injured from the night before. And, to me now, he is elevated to being the top babyface on this show with what he did to Riddle here in this scooter. I do feel like the scooter will make a return, though.
You know why I think this match was put together?
Why?
I swear to God that the finish is going to be Sheamus missing, and Riddle beats Sheamus with the brogue kick.
Oh, the brogue.
I seriously think that's the whole reason that these two have been paired together, is for the play on words and nothing more.
Well, they are like two people of, I guess, similar caliber on the roster.
They'll probably have a fine match. And I mean, it's a fine mid-card 10-minute match for Mania.
They have had a fine match on Raw. Like, didn't they have a series of them, actually? Like, wasn't Vince super impressed by the match that these two had?
That's right. They did. They did a while back. Yeah.
So, and if this is the Mania direction, I think it's good for both guys. I want Sheamus to win this one. Like, I want Sheamus to beat the shit out of. Well, they're going to beat the shit out of each other, and but this Riddle character, I hope they do a double turn.
I think they did. I think you're right. It was funny though about this. Given this pretty much 3 weeks. I mean, the positive is that every segment tonight on Raw had a purpose. Everything was moving towards Mania, and it greatly helped with the pacing of the show. The other side of that is it was like, hey, you looked at me the wrong way. I want to face you at WrestleMania. Like, that was pretty much this show in a nutshell. It was come up with any creative or uncreative reason, and you two are paired for WrestleMania. Like, that's it.
It's very true. Well, especially for I'm not even going to say for the undercard, because Rhea Ripley and Asuka was pretty much just that. But in the end, like that's all that matters is how this show looks on paper, right? You know, like how many people talk about WrestleMania 17 and I don't know, like remember like Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle? Like there was no
That was thrown together on the Go Home show.
Yeah, and well, anyway. So if it's a match that people can look forward to, sometimes it's better that they don't cram too much story into it.
Then WWE, this was really humble of them. They made a big deal about the fact that over 50 billion video views on YouTube. Suck it, NBA. Everyone watches our channel.
50 billion. Yeah, well, that's a lot. Good for them.
Is that how many people will be watching WrestleMania?
Probably not.
Other planets are going to be tuning in to WrestleMania. So the SmackDown promo was all built around the fallout from Fastlane with Reigns and Edge. We did not mention it, but yeah, we are going the three-way direction. So I would imagine they're going to make that on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
You would think.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre against Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. It was all right. The first half of this was Drew getting beaten down, and then, it was the other way around. It was Drew destroying these two for the whole first half until they chop blocked the knee, and they got the heat on Drew after the break. He came back, Glasgow Kiss on Benjamin, destroys Alexander, Future Shock onto Benjamin, Claymore, and then Alexander comes off the ropes and he gets hit with a Claymore. Drew wins in 13 minutes and 8 seconds. He sold for like a minute of this 13-minute match. This was just Drew destroying Benjamin and Alexander for a long time.
Yeah. I don't really get so mad at this booking because in the end, you continue to try to make your main event players look as strong as possible. And this did that. But I do think they could have achieved something similar if, it was just Drew having singles matches with both guys like one week after another, after a long, grueling, maybe 10, 20 minutes. But they don't see Shelton and Cedric at those levels.
You could pre-tape the singles matches, and after he wins, they just fade off into dust. So they can't show up at WrestleMania. Like they're just eliminated.
Wow, like that?
Yeah, just like that. Yeah. Or not. MVP is with Benjamin and Alexander. They're very disappointed. You had the numbers advantage and you still lost. Lashley is pissed. So he says, I'm going to find someone that can get the job done. So he walks into the 24/7 locker room and we just scan the room. Akira Tozawa, Humberto Carrillo, Drew Gulak, Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, and far right, Ricochet.
Yes. The guy who the Hurt Business had taunted for weeks and weeks.
They recruited this guy.
Yeah.
Is this all they had to do is just promise him a title shot? Maybe he's interested now. This poor guy. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's seriously. Like, we look at Akira Tozawa and have written him off. Like, the talent in this room, it's insane. And they're total jokes. All of them. I was hoping that Lashley would look over to just the dark room and maybe Aleister Black has a pulse.
We also got a sense of like how the locker room is actually laid out here in the WWE, where I guess the Hurt Business have like the big locker room and then you just turn the corner and like all the 205 Live guys are gathered like cramped together in like the little corner. Is that it? Because they're small. I guess they don't need as much space to change.
Well, they've got to have a door to be monitoring R-Truth and then quickly race out the door and run in a procession. So
right.
They've got to have easy access to an exit.
Yeah, what do you think Ricochet's plans are for WrestleMania? Do you think they do a Battle Royal this year?
I guess like all the...
don't care that much.
I think that's about the best you could expect from Ricochet. Like, I don't expect him to have anything of substance. So, yeah, a Battle Royal, or he's just going to order
in
it
the 24/7 segment.
Yeah, you'll probably need the 24/7 segment. Maybe they can do a segment where they teach you how to order the show on Peacock, how to log in. He could be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well.
I'm not even supposed to be here. I've already won. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. We had Lana and Naomi on commentary, and I thought that their outfits, they were auditioning for, I think, episode 4 of WandaVision, the 80s one. This was Lana Vision.
Very good.
Well, they want a rematch. They've been destroyed by this team. I don't know what would warrant a rematch, but you call out a champion, they'll probably accept because they need a match at WrestleMania. So that's that. Reginald's out with Nia, does these backflips down the ramp, and then he'd constantly get involved just doing flips and shit. Like that's his role now, is just to come out and all flips.
No fists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a really weird match. I get distraction finishes, but man, this was like taking it to the next level. Or a guy just like in full view of the referee would just come in and do a bunch of these like incredible flips, but nonetheless, it was just like it felt. Man, it was that plus the Shayna interference as well. So it was just too much.
I'm gonna say this. When I do this day in history, you know what happened on this day in history, Way?
What?
It was the Austin Beer Bash with Vince McMahon, Shane, and The Rock. And I was looking at this show of Raw, and after this beer bash, this is the go home show for Mania. They do a title versus title match between the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn on like, I don't think any advertising, just New Age Outlaws are going to face each other. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They proceeded to have among the worst matches you could ever, like worse than anything we've seen this year or last year. It was unbelievably bad. And I go back, it was like, yes, there were some great things going, but overall the wrestling quality, like even when there's matches that we'll harp on, it's so much better. Like this match was a disaster. And these two were a tag team. Like you would think their chemistry would be through the roof. They just screwed up everything.
Are you saying this match was better than that? This Nia, Shayna, Mandy, Dana match?
No, I'm saying this was loads better than Road Dogg and Billy Gunn in 1999.
Sure, okay.
So I'm watching this with perspective. This was not a great match. It ended in 347 with Nia Jax hitting the Samoan drop after the distraction from breakdancing. And Lana and Naomi just repeating, we want a rematch. They didn't confront the champions. They didn't get involved. Nothing. They were just out here. And by default, I guess they'll get a title match. Or they'll just throw all the women into some tag title scenario.
I certainly hope not, because I don't know what argument. I guess Dana and Mandy are on the same level as Lana and Naomi at this point, having just lost. So
they had built up one team semi-strong, and that's Natalya and Tamina.
Okay, I guess so. Yeah, it feels like there's such a non-presence, on these shows. Maybe they'll put them all in. Who knows? But I thought the segment was pretty bad here. Didn't make Shayna and Nia look very good, having to have
way too much going on here. It's just all a mess.
And I think Lana and Naomi were very ineffective on commentary. Didn't really say anything. And what, I don't really blame them. How do you call a fucking match with a dude flipping around like half the time? Who wasn't in the match, but all of it I just thought was pretty bad.
You know what I was really disappointed with is that Lana had the greatest opening after Miro's segment last week, that when they were talking about Reginald and Nia, Lana's line could have been, the worst thing for your career is having a significant other in your corner.
That would have been great.
I was waiting for it. That would have been very funny. Alexa Bliss is in her playground. She warns Randy that he is still here and to be careful what you wish for, because all night long they were promoting Randy Orton summoning the Fiend.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to headline Raw with a summoning.
Yeah, sounds about right for the story.
Oh, then we had this. Elias, Jackson Riker, and Shane McMahon are in the ring. Shane explains that he would have destroyed the Peanut Brain Braun had he not injured his knee. The match will happen once his knee heals. Mentions that Elias did not get the job done, so he's facing Braun again. As Elias tries to make an excuse, Shane warns him, never interrupt me. And then we got a collab between Elias and Shane called Braun is Stupid. And this was awesome because we had to have like a lectern out here so that Shane could read the lyrics that Elias had no problem memorizing. And I thought that was awesome to watch the comparison here. They were in sync. This was a song that was probably very crafted. I don't think that The Miz and Morrison have anything to be threatened by.
No.
And then Saxton called this Bizarro Land to write a song that would provoke Braun Strowman. So Toronto finally off the hook.
I think I would hope that we have better musical ability than this.
So Strowman comes out, and we got the rematch between Elias and Braun Strowman. Braun was destroying him. Jackson Riker got involved. Braun hit the Strowman Express, which now has sound effects. So that you're actually to believe this is an actual train in motion with the big choo-choo.
Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to believe it, but it's something they've added for effect, which feels unprecedented. Because we've had, sound effects, I suppose, in entrance themes. We've had guys kind of like call out their own finishers, but we've never had like audio from like the building pipe in a sound effect to, enhance somebody's signature move. I think it's hilarious. I actually like that spot now. It's just.
Can you imagine Hulk Hogan hulking up in this era?
Oh my God, yeah. What would what sound would he make? Like it'd probably be thunder or something. This is like a new age of pro wrestling, John. I mean, sound effects in the body of wrestling matches.
He'd do the big "you," and then Soulja Boy would come out saying, "This is fake."
Yes.
Elias lost in 307 to a power slam. Shane hit him with the crutch, and it had no effect on Braun. And it was Braun who calls Shane a stupid son of a bitch. So he's no better than Shane. Shane runs away, proving the knee injury was fake. And Braun has had enough of his games and enough of you calling me stupid. I want to end this up there in the ceiling. You see it? WrestleMania. And Shane accepts and will take on Braun in any match that Braun wants because I will win because you are stupid.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we still don't know Shane's motivation nor the source of his confidence. But I hope there's justifiable reason for it all.
This should be an introduction for Shane to manage someone. Like this could be someone like Shane's got something up his sleeve to introduce someone and at least move this on to someone benefits out of this Shane character.
Yeah, you would think so.
Like Shane as a manager, I'm fine with.
Sure.
This storyline's brutal, but it's whatever. It's our Shane McMahon stunt fest. And then we got the greatest tee up for a segment in history. Randy Orton is walking in the back and Byron Saxton completely calm, just like he's teeing up the next Kaboom of the week, notes, after emerging from the abyss of hell last night, the Fiend is back, and Randy Orton is going to summon the Fiend next. From the abyss of hell. Before we go to the abyss of hell, they announced for night 1 of WrestleMania, night 1 live, not at the Murphy Rec Center, but instead at RJ Stadium. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, and The Miz versus Bad Bunny. Night 2 has the Universal Championship match and Asuka versus Rhea Ripley with another match to be added after this segment.
I thought we were going to get Miz and Bad Bunny 2 nights in a row here with this graphic screw up at the beginning.
Oh my God. So they show the graphic and then, Way's right. They show the graphic a second time. Then it goes to black. Then they show the Universal Championship graphic twice. The MVPs of this were Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips, who were so calm and just were total pros here. I was very impressed.
So rare screw up, by this production team, but it happened at a pretty bad time because
You're very
people,
confused of like what you're getting. Oh, no.
Yeah.
You're like lining up the nights to differentiate these matches from the different nights. But hey, I thought Saxton and Phillips, believe me, I've had my share of live TV having to handle snafus, but these two did a great job, I thought. Randy Orton comes out and he said how he watched the Fiend burn. No more mind games, no more bliss, no more Fiend after tonight. The bullshit comes to an end. And out comes Alexa with her musical box. The lights go out. The Fiend appears. The Swamp Man in the ring. Or as Byron says, what's left of him. Have you seen any of the Randy Orton Austin interview yet?
No. I mean, just the first 5 minutes.
It's pretty good. It's really good. But I haven't finished it. But my God, in my head, I just wanted Steve Austin, after a few shots of Jack, to be watching this. Now, Randy, this guy's come back from the dead. What's going through your head? This is the segment I want Austin to analyze.
Do they talk about this at all?
I've watched most of it. There's like 20 minutes left, and they haven't touched on this, but they could have saved it for the end, so maybe. I don't know. I'm up to the... they went into the Edge stuff. It's a really engaging interview. Like, Randy Orton is... I think it's a very insightful interview towards Randy Orton. I think people will enjoy it if they haven't seen it. But back to this, what you may not enjoy. Orton stares at the Fiend, and out of his sack that he's brought is, gasoline. I love this. Randy smelled the gasoline to make sure it's still gasoline. He pours it over the Fiend, who just stands there. He then gets matches, but instead of matches, he decides, well, I tried to light this guy on fire, and it didn't kill him. So what's more lethal? An RKO. So he hits him. Alexa enters the ring as the Fiend stands up, applies the mandible claw, and then hits Sister Abigail. Randy is down, and then Alexa points to the WrestleMania sign. The audio engineer plays the Fiend's theme music, and we announce, for night 2 of WrestleMania, Randy Orton versus the man from the abyss of hell, the Fiend.
Yeah, this was the challenge. Yeah. I was disappointed by the segment. I thought somebody was going to...
What more can they do? They've done everything. Like,
burn somebody.
A machine gun?
I thought they were going to burn Randy Orton.
That'd be hard. I mean, he has showed amazing recuperative abilities from that fireball to the face that was bandaged for a week, and then last night, 0 impact. So fire, he may have built up a tolerance for.
He's immune, yeah.
They didn't announce anything else beyond this just being a match, but I guess this one has to be something more.
It'll be a spectacle, yeah, for sure.
It has to be, yeah. Which will be interesting to see how a crowd reacts to a longer taped Fiend segment if they go that direction. I think a portion of it has to be live, given that it's the crowd that's there. But that's something we have not had to deal with the Fiend over the last year. It's been all no crowds. But at Mania, I do think you need some kind of live element to it. But it is the match you would expect them to go into the abyss from hell.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the match, the Abyss from Hell. We'll get a Chris Parks cameo or a Joseph Parks cameo.
He's there, yeah.
So that was Raw. A lot happened on the show. There was certainly no shortage of stuff to talk about. Everything is building towards WrestleMania. So in that sense, the show's moving. It's moving quickly.
Yeah, we have a pretty good sense of the card now. I wouldn't say that there was any good wrestling to speak of on this show, but I thought a lot of relevant booking. So, made it worthwhile for that reason.
Let's go to some feedback before we get out of here. So tonight's Raw generated a 5.38 from the forum. We'll start off with Daniel. He said, a good show tonight. We had Lashley versus Sheamus again. No bother. I will watch any combination of these two and Drew fight forever. Despite BT. Who's BT?
BT?
Despite BT rudely interrupting the match, it was very good and a nice setup for the match, which led to the Mania stip. I hope a Hurt Business split isn't on the cards, as they've been a highlight of Raw. Asuka and Peyton was decent, then out came Rhea.
BT, like the channel?
Maybe he's talking about BT the channel. Okay, we didn't have that issue here. I was like, who is BT and when did he run in? Anyway, talks about Rhea here. Didn't think this would set up well, but I'm all of a sudden more excited for Rhea versus Asuka than I am Bianca versus Sasha. I'm convinced Charlotte will somehow fit in here. The Miz and Jeff Hardy, clean as a whistle, feel like I would have to do some serious searching to find when Miz last won a match clean. There was actual train noises as Braun ran around the ring, which I feel bad for saying I liked. Graphics department were on fire. As The Fiend and Alexa insinuated they're going to WrestleMania, the graphic was there instantly, including a picture of the Mr. Fiend kindly... Okay. That's his thoughts on the show.
You're trying... I mean, it seemed like a difficult one. Let's go to Nick from Boston, who says, inspired by Shane and Elias, I've decided to leave my usual feedback in the form of a limerick. Tonight's Raw had a bit more direction. The Hurt Business needs some course correction. Rhea's debut is a quick solve. Almost his favorite color is mauve. The only bummer was Crispy Bray's unexplained resurrection. With Fastlane out of the way, the show moved at a far better pace. Intriguing that Bad Bunny versus The Miz is a singles match. You must have a lot of trust and admiration from those backstage. If Charlotte is cleared within the next 1 to 2 weeks, I could totally see her being included in the title match, and I wouldn't mind at all. 2 strong triple threats on one night could be very fun.
Next one here. What age group do you think this product is meant to be aimed at? I sat through Fastlane. I sat through Raw tonight. I mean, they purposely inputted a train sound when Braun did the Strowman Express tonight. I am 31, and I think I would really have a hard time finding people of my age group to sit through this product at the moment.
I think it's whatever mental age the person at the top is. You know, so maybe, I don't know, 6.
Who doesn't love train sounds?
We got a Kate finally who says, sometimes the best option is to go with the obvious choice in the simplest way possible. Asuka's match against Peyton immediately felt like its only purpose was to set the stage for Rhea's arrival and to lay the groundwork for Mania. And that's exactly what happened. The challenge was made and accepted, and it was just fine. There is no need to mess around with subplots and extraneous characters. I'm pretty excited to see what these two will do in the ring. Honestly, I hope that WWE just puts together a few video segments on the women that can air over the next couple weeks. Rhea could use a match or two just so that the Raw audience gets to see her in the ring on her own, but less is more. There's very little they have to do to keep this program hot, and the biggest danger is that they do too much. While I'm not going to say no to Drew and Sheamus fighting on Raw, I feel like someone should tell them to stop at this point. Seeing both of them go at it with the wounds from the night before still visible made me feel guilty for how much I've been enjoying seeing the damage they've inflicted on each other and themselves. I'm still not sure how crowds will react to Drew at Mania, but I think the strength of Sheamus' performances recently make it likely he'll get a babyface reaction, especially after he took out Riddle. I feel a bit sorry for Damian Priest, who was positioned very strongly in the Rumble and afterwards, but who, for the moment, appears to have been demoted to Bad Bunny's bodyguard. I know there's still time to change to a tag match, but after doing a great job of making Priest seem like a big deal, they've already stumbled with him. All the more reason I want them to avoid mucking around with Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I think that, certainly, Damian Priest, he's been off for a few shows now. So, again, we don't know what they're dealing with, that this could all be just trying to deal with who's available, who's not available. There's going to be a lot of that. And there's going to be a lot of these, performers that they're doing something with. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're not available. They've got to navigate around that. So, I don't know what the deal is with Damian Priest. We don't know what the deal is with Keith Lee. We do know what's happening with Charlotte, what she revealed tonight. So I think you're going to see a lot of these examples where it sometimes is all over the place, but we'll see what the status is of Damian Priest and if they change it or not. I think, to what we said, I think you can go either way at Mania. I don't think it's a big difference either way, tag match or singles match.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He'll get plenty of spotlight either way, I think.
So there we go. Where's WrestleMania for you? Now that we're 3 weeks out, card is starting to shape up. Where's the interest level way?
Maybe like I want to say 6.5 to 7 out of 10. No, I think on paper the matches seem to be staggered relatively nicely, giving you something to look forward to. I would say on both nights. Drew Lashley is shaping up to be a pretty good headliner, as is Reigns versus Edge and versus Bryan now. Asuka Ripley is a good match. Shayna and Belair, I think Sasha and Belair in ring will be very good. So what they've announced so far looks promising, and I always have a curiosity to see what sort of if it is a Firefly Funhouse match, what Bray Wyatt does. I'm also curious about what they do with Bad Bunny, so I'm looking forward to it.
Given that they put Banks and Belair on the first night, do you see any opportunity, even a small one, that they could end up going on last? Because I would say if they had put them on night 2, I would say 0% chance.
It's possible, but it certainly doesn't feel like a hotter program than Drew and Lashley right now.
Yeah, we will see. It certainly has that potential. But yeah, as we mentioned on Sunday, they definitely have their work cut out for them with that program. But there you go. That is Raw, and I think everyone now getting a sense of WrestleMania, and probably more so to come on Friday with SmackDown, because they've got a very small amount of time. So a lot of people that might be bumping shoulders backstage, and boom, it's going to be a blood feud to culminate in 2 weeks' time at WrestleMania.
Well, here's another question. How long do you think these shows will each go this year?
I'm thinking about this in my head, and just thinking of the main players, how deep are these shows going to be when we're splitting them up over 2 nights? Are you going to even have the bodies to do an Andre Battle Royal? To have 20 guys that are just around. It's I'm not expecting, last year, both nights, they were reasonable times. 3 hours, I think, is what they topped out around.
Mm-hmm. But no crowds.
Another thing is that the advertising material, they're promoting an 8 p.m. start time for WrestleManias, unlike the usual 7 o'clock time that they start the pay-per-views at. So an hour later. But probably a kickoff before that, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still the chance it could go at least 4 hours. But I would hope that because of this, the days of a 7-hour WrestleMania are over.
You're not getting that this year.
Yeah, not with the show being split into 2 nights. And I have to think that they are, they don't want to burn their audience out after one night.
Last year, for all the empty arenas, and those were, especially the first night, very well received show, and the time, the length definitely played a factor, I think, with people having that, not having that feeling of just hitting a wall midway through the show. So I thought that was something they could certainly take from last year that hopefully is applied to this year, and give people two strong nights and don't overload it for just one night.
I could see a 1 hour kickoff and possibly a 4 hour main show.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the depth of the cards is, how deep these cards go. That's I'm doing it in my head. There's not a whole lot of programs to put together. It's all, your title matches, and the other key programs are pretty much all in place now. All right, so we will be back on Tuesday with our review of Creed. That will be out Tuesday evening for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, and then we're back live Wednesday night, 10:15 Eastern, after Dynamite, and we will be chatting about that show. So one more time, where can people go for the Bushby and Thompson sale?
Bushby and Thompson Wrestling Adventure. Their t-shirt is available 25% off the entire week for everybody at store.postwrestling.com. The discount will be automatically applied.
All right. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll speak with you later this week.